Hello everyone, this is Sonder and welcome to my farming guide for the new era in Star Wars Galaxy of Heroes. I'm going to be taking you through my thoughts, my feelings, my ideas for an ideal farming path for someone just starting an account now as we head into the anniversary events of Star Wars Galaxy of Heroes, and most importantly, we head into 6 months of Lightspeed tokens that will be given freely to every player in the game, but will be most beneficial to new players. So I'll be basing this guide around these Lightspeed tokens, explaining what I think would be worthwhile farming alongside and how I think we could best make use of these tokens, and hopefully put together quite an efficient and flexible start to a new account's journey in Star Wars Galaxy of Heroes. So without further ado, let's get started. So I think it's worthwhile to spend a little bit of time going through what's coming up in terms of Lightspeed tokens, which is the main reward, the main gift that we're getting from the anniversary events. I'm sure there'll be others, but I think this is the thing that's captured most people's imagination and myself included. So what are we going to get? We're going to get 6 releases, 6 batches of Lightspeed tokens, each of which corresponds to a journey event, and each of which also contains a free faction-wide token in addition to specific character tokens. So what are we getting? We're getting Phoenix, including Emperor Palpatine, which is the journey guide character that they could be used to unlock, a Rebel Lightspeed token, Jedi starting next month, and Yoda, which is the journey guide character and a general Jedi Lightspeed token. We then move into Inquisitorius and R2-D2, and then the CLS journey and strangely enough, a droid Lightspeed token, not sure why, but we will make good use of it, I am sure. A bounty hunter faction, which forms a lot of the pilots of the Executor, which will form a large chunk of this farming plan. And then finally we end with the Mandalorian in April next year. So this is a 6-month time frame, which is quite a long time and does put some quite clearly defined timelines in terms of what we're farming and when. So I think that will inform a lot of the decisions that get made. So what can we use these Lightspeed tokens for? The first and I'd say equal most obvious thing is Leia. As you can see here, Leia requirements can be obtained through 8 Lightspeed tokens. Some are character Lightspeed tokens, like Captain Rex, Akbar, etc. Some are faction Lightspeed tokens, Drogon, Scout Trooper, Boshan, 3PO and Chewie. The only thing to call out is that I put a little asterisk next to Scout Trooper because she, I believe, is part of the Empire faction, which there is a faction Lightspeed token for, that does conflict slightly with another potential use of that token. But that's 7 or 8 potential Lightspeed tokens out of 15, which is pretty amazing, and all other requirements are pretty easy to farm. There's no conquest characters, there's barely any characters, I think. It would only be Princess Nisa and Scout if you choose not to use the Lightspeed token for. Leia, of course, is probably the best all-round GL in terms of PvP and PvE. Doesn't have a great resource event, but I think provides a lot of benefit as a first GL, where the impact of adding that GL sort of unlocks a lot more avenues for a new account that they wouldn't be able to do before. Specifically, really improves GAC performance, will help a lot in Conquest, and is really good, and I think can do all of the Proving Grounds missions that come after Conquest. So I think it's probably anyway the best GL to go for early on. Maybe that's Jabba, but this proves it without a doubt. Leia is the best first GL, and this guide will be built around her. I've marked the dates where we're getting the Lightspeed tokens that will be used for Leia. They're pretty spread out, but most importantly, they finish around March. If you were to rush Leia and only focus on Leia, I think you could, I think almost certainly you could unlock her by March, given the new relic changes that are also coming to the game. I don't think that's the best plan, because GL and Leia in particular is great to have early on. I think there's something else that's more important to prioritize, and maybe shift getting Leia back a couple months, 3 months from this March date. But I think it's still good to try and get her as early as possible without impacting other good farms. So this March date is the earliest that we could get her. So what else will we be farming? Obviously the Executor. Only 7 character requirements, 5 of which can be unlocked through Lightspeed tokens, which is crazy. Admiral Piet, of course, shares a Lightspeed token with Scout. I'll go into it a bit later, but I'd recommend probably using it on Piet, so that is 5 out of the 7. The other 2, TIE Fighter Pilot and Darth Vader, are very easy farms, and not that high relics. So great use of the Lightspeed tokens, really accelerates the farm. If anything, accelerates it too much, because there'll be some limiting factors that prevent us from really rushing and getting this within literal months. I'll go into that in the next few guides. So these are the requirements in terms of characters. You also need Beskar Armor Mandalorian for the Razor Crest, and Cad Bane to pilot the Xanadu Blood. So these are not direct requirements, but are pretty much requirements. Beskar Armor Mandalorian is a Lightspeed token, so you could use that when it comes in April. And this is the dates for these tokens. As you can see, this is very backloaded. If these were further towards the start, we could rush Executor. As it stands, there's going to be a natural sort of timeline governed by when the Lightspeed tokens release, which is end of April. So about 6 months from now. And that, to be honest, is not the worst thing in the world, because we're also governed by the farming of the Razor Crest, which is a notoriously slow farm, which takes around 3 to 5 months. I'll have to calculate that exactly, but it takes a while, and I think you can expect it around the same time. So I think Executor is the most important thing to get early to get that fleet income, but we'll have to make sure we're ready for April and more realistically May, because the Executor event tends to come out on the 15th. which these dates will be just afterwards. So yeah, the plan would not to rush into things, but instead use the sort of dead time at the start to build up some resources. And finally, quite simply, the last main feature of this farming plan is bow. There's really not much to it. You'll be getting 3 out of the 4 lightspeed tokens, and will only need to farm 1 character, which is crazy. Bow is great in GAC, has a mission that unlocks additional currency and Carotech in TB, so as well as giving you those resources, will also help get you into a better guild doing those missions. So a very good early farm, made so much easier by these lightspeed tokens. Obviously not that many, only 3, but again, we won't be able to unlock until the end of April. So again, this sort of backloads the farming plan. And that leads me to, I guess, my preamble before actually going through the farming plan, my manifesto in the style of my fave, Nemic. So what are we going to be focusing on? So as I mentioned, lightspeed tokens are backloaded, so we're going to focus on good resource getting teams early on, mainly teams that are good in assault battles. Secondly, high fleet placement is good, and it's what we're aiming for by farming the Executor, but given that this is coming out at the time of the anniversary and everyone's going to be jumping on a new account, buying lightspeed bundles, I suspect early high fleet placement is going to be very challenging for a free-to-play player. So I wouldn't spend too much resources on what I would call intermediate fleets while you farm an Executor. I'd try to work with what you have in terms of the ships you're already farming, and maybe scrap for a top 50 place, but I wouldn't worry too much about it and just accept that it's going to be a few months until you can start challenging for the top spots. And I wouldn't try gamble and farm, say, a Galactic Republic fleet or a Home 1 fleet that is really only going to delay you, and by the time you have that fleet anyway, it's going to be a month or 2 until you get Executor. So I don't think it's too worth it to divert your focus that way. Also, early teams should make use of currencies and not necessarily energy, and should be quick to farm and get online. Also, the new economy changes should make things a bit easier when it comes to relicking your characters, because you can use Mark II raid currency to buy additional resources, and there should be a little bit extra signal data coming our way. So instead of just farming loads of different teams for a very wide roster, I think as a free-to-play player, it will become easier to reach at least Relic 7, which most of these farms require, and a couple of Relic 8s. So it'll be quite heavy on the relics, but I think that should be doable given the changes. And finally, GAC, similar to fleets, don't focus too much on farming teams specifically for this. By all means, make use of what you have, add Omicrons where it's possible, but don't worry about pushing too high in GAC early. It's better to build your resources at the start and then start to specialize once you have an account that's more flexible and can adapt and can farm more specific or luxury teams. So that brings me on to the plan. I've split it up into 3 phases. Phase 1 is definitely the most involved. The other 2 phases focus on farming Executor and Leia. This is about using that dead time we have at the start, where the Lightspeed tokens don't relate so much to those farms, but are still very good Lightspeed tokens that we can use to build our resource income in the game. So the very first batch of Lightspeed tokens will be Phoenix teams. This is self-explanatory. We can use 4 out of 5 tokens and also farm Kanan. You could use Ezra, but I think may as well just farm Kanan up to gear 12. It's a very easy farm with squad arena currency and also no Carotech. So may as well farm him up, give him his data, and then you should be able to do the first challenge tiers of the military might and the secrets and shadows assault battles, which require rebels and Phoenix respectively. So that's the very first thing we can do. It's pretty laid out for us in terms of given that team with the Zetas. It should be a pretty simple job. Then in December we'll be getting Jedi characters. One of which is Keller and Beck, which is a very good all-round Galactic Republic Jedi lead. And then we can make use of Grandmaster Yoda and Ahsoka, and you could also use Mace Windu and Shakti, who are also Lightspeed tokens. But I put these 2 additional characters because they form probably the best assault battle in the game, which is Duel of the Fates. Which gives the best resources, starts to give you high relic materials, very valuable farm, and we are getting a Jedi faction Lightspeed token. You can use that on one of them. It doesn't matter so much which one. I've put Padawan Obi-Wan just because he's a bit more valuable in that he does have a use in Conquest. So if you happen to have the Lightspeed token before you're able to farm them up, I would put it on Padawan Obi-Wan. If not, Master Qui-Gon. Both require Cantina energy. So farm up both. And I think these should be the first 2 relics in the game. I should mention that the relics you see on here are either Relic 3 by default, because Lightspeed tokens give you the characters at Relic 0. So I think at a minimum, to give them a bit of use, may as well get them up to Relic 3. It really doesn't cost that much. The economy changes should make that even easier with more access to Bronzium and Carbonite circuit boards. So that's why I put a minimum of 3 for Lightspeed tokens. The other numbers you'll see will be their adventure requirements. Keller and Beck is required for Bo-Katan Mandalore Relic 7. By no means do you have to relic them up by these dates. These are just the dates that the Lightspeed tokens, the final ones, come out. So these are just what you eventually need to get them to. But to complete these assault battles, you will not need to get to that high relics. The Jedi assault battle may be trickier, but I think you should be able to get it done with this team and with Master Qui-Gon and Padawan Obi-Wan at Relic 7. Those 2 I've suggested at Relic 7 because that's the tier you should be getting them up to for Duel of the Fates. There is an R9 tier, and I do suspect that with the changes, it will be easier to get to R9. So I'd actually recommend these be your first R9s, but I think that may still be a wee while down the road. So if you happen to accumulate R9 mats and materials and have finished with other requirements. I think a very good first use of your R9 materials, but for now, part of my Relic 7. Then, so a little bit of a departure from the Assault Battle farming. We've already hopefully got 4 within a couple of months, which would be pretty crazy, but I think doable given the extra resources we're getting. Then I think it's important to focus on raid characters. This really shouldn't be that much of an investment because we'll be halfway through the raid, so I wouldn't worry about going too crazy. But I think it's still beneficial to get a couple of teams up and running, get a solid, respectable raid score. It can help get you into a better guild and also start to give you the personal raid rewards. So the 2 teams, in inverted quotes teams, is Grand Moff Tarkin, who's a solo artist. You probably don't need to get him all the way up to Relic 5, but I think that's easy enough to do and a good place to stop, especially now with Relic Delta coming online. I think it may be possible to even do beyond the minimum tier of 300,000 because you'll have Relic Delta 5, which should make him hit a lot harder and be a lot more survivable. So I think Relic 5 you can maybe get 450k. That's not a promise, but definitely at least 300,000. And then you can make use of Keller and Beck and Shakti from the Lightspeed tokens, and then do some really quick Jedi Vanguard farms just using currency and get them up to gear 12. And you should have another good team for the early tiers. It may be that you only need these 2, especially with Relic Delta if you do happen to Relic Keller and Beck. So I guess play it by ear and add these characters as you need to. They're really not a big expense, so I wouldn't worry too much about saving on them just to gear 12. Very easy to get. And also they have other uses. Plo Koon is a pilot. Qui-Gon Jinn is good in GAC if you throw on an Omicron, and you can use them with the other Jedi that you already have. So I think a good detour and a good way to get yourself into a decent guild and start earning rewards. Because to be honest, guild rewards are the best form of rewards in the game, better in assault battles, and if you can leverage yourself into a better guild, that's worth a lot more than adding an additional assault battle. Yes, they're temporary, but the rate of resources you get is worth it, and you do have to make that continual investment, but I just wouldn't ignore it. Unless you get invited to a guild way above your level without having to farm these, then yes, go do that, I guess. But if not, this can help you get into a better guild. And then finally, we have Imperial Troopers. For true assault battles, make use of requirements for Leia and Executor and 1 Lightspeed token between them. The rest you can sort of slow farm as you work on the other tunes. Pretty easy farms, shouldn't have to gear up that highly. Gear 12 should be fine for both these assault battles. So this should give you a really good grounding and a really good start. As you're working on these, you'll also be getting the Lightspeed. The general faction Lightspeed tokens, these are my recommendations. Apart from the 2 I've mentioned, Captain Drogon needed for Leia Organa and also very versatile. So definitely worthwhile doing, I would say. While you're doing this, I would start farming ships. which are needed for Executor, because there is a minimum time that we can unlock Executor by due to the Lightspeed token releases. I wouldn't worry about double refreshing them. Single refreshes should be fine. The rest are pretty easy farms, apart from Razor Crest, which is a very slow farm. So anytime you see this ship, pick it up. It will take a while. So just be diligent and check the shipments. Yes. Punishing one, not a requirement, but a very good ship, and definitely worthwhile picking up as well, because you'll already have Dengar as an Executor requirement. So I'll just go through my key thoughts and tips for this phase, what to keep in mind. I won't do this for the others, but I think it's important to explain my working a little bit here. So yeah, the relics aren't needed for the assault battles. I reckon some relics would be useful, but you probably don't need them at the requirement levels. So yeah, don't feel that you have to get them up. By the times that I've listed, those are just the minimum time that you can get those teams by. The Jedi Bros are, I would say, mandatory relics, just because of their amazing value. You can choose between Piet or Scout. I recommend Piet just because he's more pivotal to that team early on for the assault battle, but it really depends on what energy is a problem for you at that time. I'd say you probably have more fleet energy, just because there's the ships require a lot of armor energy, where Scout Trooper would not. Omicron Order, this is just a recommendation. I would say Padawan Obi-Wan, just because he can help with a little bit extra resource income from Conquest early on, then Krex, then the original Qui-Gon, not Master Qui-Gon, just because you'll have his team ready for GAC with no extra investment, which is great. Then for your energy expenditure, if you were to farm everything simultaneously, that would be 480 normal energy a day. Without refreshes, you get 475 from the web store, from natural energy occurring, and from the bonus energy throughout the day. I'd recommend 2 refreshes on top of this, just to top up the energy in case you miss it, but then also to use it for things like Chirotex and other farms, or maybe accelerate other characters later on. Fleet energy 200 if you just do Scout and Punishing one. You could use it to farm Slave 1. You don't really need to, because you can just use fleet currency. So I'd say 200. You get 285, so really no need for refreshes, but you could if you're in a pinch for Gear 12 materials. Don't recommend ship refreshes unless you are getting very close to the dates and are behind on a couple of ships. Most of them you should get a little head start from the quest, so I think you should have them all in plenty of time, apart from the Razor Crest. In terms of crystals, the minimum that you'll have is about 280, which could afford you approximately 2 Cantina refreshes and just under 2 normal refreshes. You should be able to push this a little higher, with some better performance in GAC, maybe sneaking into the top 50 of fleet. So you should be able to cover these, but increase your refreshes as your crystal income increases. This is at the start of the game, the best way to spend your crystals. Keep some fleet currency in reserve to pick up Razor Crest shards, because these are the most rare, most valuable shards from that store. So keep a bit of a reserve in case one pops up and you didn't have currency, which would not be good. And then finally, as I said, don't worry too much about fleet very early on. Obviously, try with what you have and what you're farming for Executor. Other things that you could do that wouldn't harm your other fleets too much would be working on some of the Galactic Republic fleet, which you'll get lightspeed tokens for their pilots, so you might be able to pick up some of those ship shards, and also things like TIE Bomber, Houndstooth. Obviously don't relic Houndstooth because he is a lightspeed token, but even at gear 12 potentially, and low stars might have some value, but again, I wouldn't worry about this too much because you'll be up against huge lightspeed bundle fleets. So yeah, play around with it, see if you can push into the top 50, but don't worry too much if that's too difficult. Keep focused on the Executor. And that brings me to phase 2 of this farm, which is finishing off the Executor requirements. Pretty much most of these are lightspeed tokens. The ones that aren't are very easy farms. You've got some Galactic War Store farms and Darth Vader, who you'll just naturally pick up by completing challenges. May 15th is the target date, because that should be the next Executor released after the final lightspeed token comes online. So you may have to wait a little bit, potentially hoard a little bit for some of these lightspeed tokens, but I'd recommend making sure you're ready, maybe with some crystals in hand for some refreshes for May the 15th. While you're working on Executor, I'd recommend starting your shard farms for Leia. So first of all, I would start with Ewoks to unlock C-3PO, who's not needed for Leia, but is a good journey guide character. So I would focus on farming these 3, which are needed for Leia, and then pick up 2 really cheap. You probably don't even have to gear them, to be honest, because once they're relics, these should carry it. So yeah, I've just selected some that are Guild Store shipments. So yeah, build up your Ewoks. While you're farming Wicket, you should also pick up, you will pick up Death Trooper Peridia shards, which are on the same node, so you can make a nice head start on another assault battle while you're farming Wicket. I then focus on working on the lightspeed token characters for the CLS team. 3 of these will be lightspeed tokens that you will use for Leia. And then you can pick up Han Solo from the Guild Store and C-3PO by farming the Ewoks, which gives you potentially challenge tier 3 of the Rebel assault battle. I wouldn't say this is 100% necessary, because you will be unlocking Leia. You should be able to do it anyway. But this would be a nice solid team to use in other game modes, Conquest, and it is all requirement characters. And you can even throw in Drogon, who is a lightspeed token and can work as part of this team. So yeah, definitely work on these, and then get a head start on the farms, I would say the not so good characters for Leia. I wouldn't worry about relicing these. These are probably lower priority than things like Commander Luke, 3PO and Chewie. But yeah, definitely make a head start on farming them. This will be quite a cantina heavy phase of the game, so potentially increase your refreshes because you will also have to farm signal data. But Lando and Lobot are in the same node, I believe, so it's not too bad. A nice side farm, not necessary, but I think worthwhile, is Sith for the places of power and soul battle. You already have Emperor Palpatine and Darth Vader Darth Vader from farming for Executor, Emperor Palpatine from a Lightspeed token. You could then fill it with 3 other Sith. I don't think this matters too much, because again, I think Relic Delta and Darth Vader should carry you at Relic 7 through the cell battles. I selected Savage Joe Press because he's a very easy farm, and it later would be a good JAC team to add. Darth Nihilus because he's part of that JAC team, but you could really sub him in with anyone else. Darth Talon, just because she'll be quick using Cantina, but also because she's a requirement for Starkiller. And a few others of the suggestions I'm going to make later will be using Starkiller requirements, so I think would be a nice addition. Potentially you could also add in Treya, also using the same Ghost Store currency and fill out this team. Again, I don't think it'll matter too much, but again, always good to add the cell battles, even if it's just the first challenge tier. So a little bit of a side quest will be future ship farms. So these won't be needed for the main big ticket items that are part of this farming guide. I think would be very useful to work on after you've finished the bounty hunter ships for the Executor, because these are needed for both the new and improved Home 1 fleet, and also the Profundity fleet, both of which are great. I definitely recommend working towards the Profundity very soon after even unlocking the Executor, because it's always good to make a head start on these capital ships, because they take a long time to get up to 7 stars once you've unlocked them, so always good to make a head start. And also a few of these ships are requirements for good early GLs, Outrider for Jabba, and the Y-Wing for JML. And these 2 ships aren't even farmable yet, but will be, and will completely transform these fleets. So yeah, I think this would be a very good idea, or a place to spend in particular your fleet energy once you've finished with other farms, and so make a head start. And that brings me to the final phase of this farming guide. I don't want to go too far into the future, because you never know the changes. Like, for example, no one would have predicted us getting like 20 Lightspeed tokens over the course of 6 months 2 weeks ago. So it's always worth remaining flexible and being able to pivot. But this would just be if all things remain equal, what could you be working on? But before that, it's a case of finishing off Leia, which just requires relicking up the final Lightspeed token characters that you've picked up over the months. Again, as I mentioned previously, you could prioritize these over relicking some of the previous characters, because characters like R2-D2 and Drogon are a little bit more useful. But these are just the final 4 that you will need to unlock Leia. And then, of course, gear up and unlock Leia herself. Probably a good place to put some of your higher relic materials as your first GL. And then it's just a case of swing back round to bow, make sure you're farming the final character, whichever of Paz or IG-12 you decided not to use the Lightspeed token on. You will need to farm up Paz is only a 12 energy farm, so it should be easy enough. And you have Bow, you'll be in a great place to join a better guild if that's something that you're interested in. And it's also just a very good team in general. So yeah, that's, I guess, the end of making use of the Lightspeed tokens for big journey events. There is one more, but I would say definitely worthwhile doing, but maybe isn't as time sensitive as the other three I've mentioned. So if you do have a bit of time, or even while you're waiting on, let's say, the Executa or Leia, definitely worth relicking up the Inquisitorius, which you'll have Lightspeed tokens for all of them, and then it's just a case of getting Grand Inquisitor, and after that you should be able to do Fanatical Devotion Assault Battle, which is normally off limits really because it's very expensive to farm, but as you're getting all of the characters already, it's a bit of a no-brainer. Squeeze this in when you can before or after the other main farms. Peridia, as I mentioned, you're already be farming Death Trooper Peridia, so I think at that point worthwhile working on the other two and getting that second really valuable new style assault battle like Duel of the Fates up and running, and then by this point you should have all 7 or 8, or I forget how many, yeah, maybe even 9, yeah, all 9 of the assault battles at a decent tier. They won't all be maxed, but I think the most important thing is to get them to that challenge tier 1 and start getting those Zetas early, and then as you grow your roster you'll start picking up the challenge tier 3s as you go. At this point, and really after you've finished Leia, it may be worth having an eye towards the raid, because this I suspect will take until about 8-9 months from now. It's hard to tell with all of the economy changes and the effect of these Lightspeed tokens, but we should be looking about let's say sort of May-ish, May-June next year. By that time we should have news on the next raid, and I think would be a good time to get in early and start working on some teams for that raid that can help you pivot into a better guild, earning those resources. I'm a big fan of doing that and improving in the raid with a view of potentially improving which guild you're in, which can be a little bit selfish, I guess, but I think is a very efficient way to increase your material income. And then also Jabba the Hutt, I think, should be your next GL after Leia, depending on what's going on in the game. Probably worth starting to farm the Hutt afterwards. So yeah, that's my guide. That's the 3 phases, and I think this will, with the Lightspeed tokens and the changes to the economy, will really accelerate free-to-play, and you should be hurtling towards 4 million with a GL ship, with the best GL in the game, with most of the assault battles done very quickly, definitely within a year, probably a lot sooner. It's pretty exciting. It's one of the reasons I've started a new account. Like a lot of others, it's not going to be completely free to play, but it is going to be following along this sort of plan. I will be releasing a separate video on my plan for that account, and I guess my specific plan given the amount of spending that I'm going to be doing. So be a little niche, but I think hopefully interesting, and kick off the account update videos that I will also want to do. So yeah, thank you very much for watching if you have, and I never thought I'd say this, but please like, please subscribe. That would just make my day if I had one view, one like. Yeah, this is just something I'm doing because I Yeah, because I'm curious, wanted to try, just speak my mind when it came to this silly little game, and yeah, just have a little bit of fun. And yeah, thank you very much, and goodbye.